And I've had a lot of people say, well, I'm going to get you out of this industry, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Like, good luck. I hope you packed a lunch, because it's going to be a while.
You've never been shy about calling people out for being frauds or for being charlatans. That's something you've always kind of done. Where does that sense of duty come from? Because it must be exhausting, and the pile-ons and the criticism you get from doing it. I'm just fascinated to get your psyche of how you still have the will and the determination to keep calling out people you think are doing a disservice, or perhaps doing things for illegitimate means.
So there's a line from a movie that I really love. It was from Live Free or Die Hard, which is in the Die Hard series. And the kid who's, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's basically like a terrorist plot, and these terrorists are shutting down like power companies and the internet and all these sorts of things. And this kid is asking John McClane, Bruce Willis's character, he's like, I can't do this, man. I'm not a hero. And Bruce Willis says, I'm not a hero either. Like, you know what being a hero gets you? It gets you, get you shot at, it gets you, lose your job, your wife won't talk to you, all this kind of stuff. And then the kid goes, why are you doing this? And he's like, because there's nobody else to do it right now. Believe me, if there was somebody else to do it, I'd let them do it, but there's not. So we're doing it. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, I previously, like 10 years ago, maybe a little bit before that, most of my content was not calling out people. It was mostly just providing education. And I had this feeling, I think I'm kind of like a pie in the sky idealist, like libertarian sort of like, oh, if people do bad things, eventually it will catch up to them. And I do think for the most part that does happen. But there's always new people coming in saying nonsense, right? And there's always new people coming into the industry who, like, they see a TikTok or they see an Instagram or whatever, and then they're not going to bother to do their due diligence on that individual if it fits with their worldview or their kind of their perception of things or their bias. They're just going to share it, right? They're not going to bother to see if it's legit or not. And so I think what I do is actually very important because, like I said, most people don't want to deal with the criticism and the blowback. I mean, I know I have been kept off of, various podcasts and even TV shows because, like, somebody who was connected, I had called out, and that's okay. Like, it's probably, in some ways it's helped me because, people follow me because they know I call it this stuff. And in some ways it's hurt me, and I'm okay with that. I have to do what I think is important and what I feel is right. Have there been times when I've probably taken it too far and like gotten a little bit nasty with folks? Yeah, probably. But I've seen the damage this stuff does through like being a coach for over 10 years. I've seen, especially in terms of like eating disorders and how many people, just develop food anxiety and have really horrible, relationship with food. And so, I'm very passionate about this stuff. So, to answer your question, I think one thing that I've always had is a lot of endurance in things when it comes to goals. I've been in this industry 20 years, over 20 years. And I've had a lot of people say, well, I'm going to get you out of this industry, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Like, good luck. I hope you packed a lunch, because it's going to be a while. And I just, there are times where I get frustrated. There are times when I feel like I'm not making a difference. But I do feel what I do is needed. And I think that I get a great deal of fulfillment for it because I have so many people reach out to me and say, thank you so much for what you do. So many people say this, like, I used to hate you because you called out somebody I followed. And then over time, you just got me questioning things. And then I realized that this was absolute nonsense. And now, like, I'm so much better off because I'm not wasting money on XYZ, and my relationship with food is better, my health is better, So I do feel like what I do gives me a great sense of fulfillment. And in that aspect, it's not difficult for me to keep doing it because I truly feel like it's making a difference.
Does it ever get you down though? I guess you sense that there's that duty that it needs to be corrected, or someone needs to be put in their place. That gets you so far. But when you do get that inevitable pile on, the blowback, people start picking through your history, looking for threads they can pull on. It's not a nice feeling, I imagine. How do you cope with it if it does get to a point where you are struggling?
I keep in mind what Reggie Jackson used to say. He played, I don't know if you're familiar for baseball, but he played for the Yankees, was a Hall of Famer, and he said, "People don't boo nobodies." So, if I'm getting criticism, that's fine. If you don't like me, that's fine. At least you're aware of me. You know what I mean? Like, at least I can get in front of some people. Now, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. But I think a lot of, honestly, like, I went through a lot of bullying growing up, and I think that actually helped me develop pretty thick skin when it comes to this stuff. I kind of like, yes, I'm not going to pretend like it never bothers me. I'm a human being. You know what I mean? So there are days, I will say, I usually like once a quarter. I'll say once a quarter, I'll have a day where I'm like, nothing I've done has made any difference. This is a waste of time. I should just go get a normal job, have somebody tell me what to do, and collect a paycheck. But that lasts for like, half a day. And then I'm like, all right, enough of this, pity party bullshit. Let's get back after it. So I do have those times, but I always, keep in mind, like, some quotes I say to myself that are like self-affirming is, someone else's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. That's something that Les Brown says. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "You cannot make me feel inferior without my consent." So, one of the things I tell is on a fundamental level, I actually really like who I am. I know I'm a good person. I know I treat people well. I actually care about people. That's why I do what I do. And so, if you're going to try and shame me or make me feel bad or tell me I'm this or that, I don't believe you, because I know who I am. And, taking a long time to get there. And I think, even up to a few years ago, some of these things would have really cut deep. But I realized, like, the only way something can make me feel bad about myself is if some part of me believes it's true. And so, now somebody said something the other day. I'm like, you're just jealous that I'm awesome. Sorry. So, I mean, it sounds cocky, but I'm like, I'd rather have somebody accuse me of being cocky than be insecure and not like myself. So I think just a lot of, like, quite frankly, a lot of therapy, a lot of self-affirmation, and just realizing that, like, I know why they're saying these things. They're trying to cut me down so that I feel insecure about myself and I stop, doing what I'm doing. And quite frankly, I'm just way too hard to get headed to give people that kind of satisfaction.
You mentioned that the childhood bullying, and obviously that must have led to some insecurity growing
Oh,
up.
yeah.
Has it been a gradual transition to be, front and center online on social media, getting the criticism? I imagine there must always be a little kernel that can be triggered by some of these comments. Has it been a long gradual process to get in a position now where you can quite happily say, I'm cocky and I'm awesome and I'm really okay with that?
Yeah. Yes, it's definitely been a journey. And I think, some life experiences I've been through, and, a lot of it has been like surrounding myself with the right people I really respect, who I think are good people, who are also telling me, "Hey, Layne, you're a great dude." Um, that, you can, I always say, like, you got to be careful, because, like, self-affirmation can also become delusional. Like, we've all known somebody who outwardly would say they're awesome, and claim all these things, and everyone else is like, "What reality do you live in? Because you're a horrible person." So, I think there is, like, it's taken that component of believing in myself and liking myself, and then also getting that validation from people who I truly trust and I know will give it to me straight. And I think, like, I cannot overstate, one of my good friends, his name's John Deloney. He's a mental health expert. And he said, really, one of the big keys to life is connection with good people that you value. And, I'm happy to say, like, my inner friends circle are people who I know will absolutely rake me over the coals if I screw something up or I do something outside my value system. But if I do something right, they will give me all the credit in the world. And I think, when I was young and I got into bodybuilding and I started getting some attention, I started doing well, I started like reaching some of my goals. I think I was kind of like, I've got this stuff figured out, like I got this stuff figured out. And then as like life punched me in the gut a few times, a lot of these childhood things kind of came back up. And I mean, I'm a really big fan of, if you can afford it, getting therapy from good mental health professionals, because that made a big difference in my life. And then honestly, the other mental health hack is having, really good friends in a good inner circle. And people say that, but it's like you can go too far, in either direction. If you've got friends and all they do is criticize you, they're not your friends. They're trying to cut you down to make them feel better about themselves. And you need to get those people out of your life. But if all people do is, and I've had this side of it too, if all people have to do is praise you, they're probably sycophants and they're looking to get something out of you. And I've dealt with both sides of that. So what you really want is people who will be honest with you and give you criticism when you've done something wrong, but also just be the person in the front row cheering the loudest for you when you do something right.